Hey everyone, so you ready to dive into some pretty incredible tech? CES 2025 just wrapped up, and, well, the future of robots.
It's looking pretty wild. I mean, we're not talking about like those clunky factory robots anymore.
Yeah, no.
Think think robots everywhere, like as common as smartphones.
It's really remarkable what we saw at CES this year.
Yeah.
Some incredible advancements, especially from NVIDIA. They're really aiming to make robots, well, as accessible and as versatile as AI became with ChatGPT.
Oh yeah, that's a great comparison. I've heard a lot of people calling this like the ChatGPT moment for robotics, but what does that actually even look like?
So imagine this, you've got robots, but they're handling like everyday tasks, not just in those like controlled environments, but we're talking about robots that are adaptable enough to work in offices, homes, even walking down the street.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. But how do we get from here to robots like strolling down the sidewalk? What's the tech that's going to make this happen? Well, NVIDIA unveiled this thing called Cosmos, and it's basically the brain power behind this whole robot revolution. They've trained it on 20 million hours of video. But here's the thing. It's not robots doing tricks. It's real-world human actions.
Oh, wow.
Walking, using tools, all the things that we do without even thinking.
Wow, 20 million hours. That's an insane amount of data. So they're teaching robots to move and interact with the world just like we do.
Exactly. And to make sure that these robots can actually safely navigate our world, NVIDIA is pairing Cosmos with their Omniverse platform.
Okay, Omniverse. That rings a bell. It's like a hyper-realistic simulation, right?
Yeah.
Almost like a video game world.
You got it. It allows developers to create like digital twins of real-world environments. So the robots can practice tasks in a safe virtual space. It's like this giant training ground where they can learn without, well, any real-world risks.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do they then translate those virtual skills into actual robots walking around? Like, what's the bridge between the digital world and reality?
Think of it like a three-part system. You got the DGX supercomputers for training the AI, then the AGX for actually powering the robots, and then the digital twins in Omniverse for practice. It's like having this team of expert programmers and then these powerful robot brains and this, super detailed virtual training ground all working together.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this whole robot ecosystem kind of comes together. But what kind of robots are we even talking about here? Will they all look and act the same?
Well, NVIDIA has identified three main types of robots that are really poised to become a lot more commonplace. First, you got agentic robots.
Okay.
These are like digital assistants, but with physical capabilities. They're designed to boost productivity in offices.
So these are the ones taking over all the mundane tasks and freeing us up for the more interesting work. I can get behind that.
Exactly.
What are the other two types?
Then we have self-driving cars, which are already fairly advanced, but will likely see even more widespread adoption. And finally, and this is maybe the most ambitious category, are humanoid robots.
Designed to seamlessly navigate our world, just like we do.
Humanoid robots. That sounds straight out of science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine training a robot to move like a human is way more complex than training a self-driving car.
It definitely presents unique challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all the subtle ways we move our hands, adjust our balance.
Right.
Capturing that data for robots is incredibly difficult.
Well, how are they tackling that? They can't exactly have millions of people just flailing their arms around for data, right?
That's where it gets really interesting. NVIDIA is actually using AI to generate something called synthetic data.
Oh, okay.
They're creating realistic simulations of human movement, but it's all within Omniverse to train these robots.
So they're building like virtual humans to teach real robots how to move.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But all of this simulation and data processing, that must require some serious computing power. It absolutely does. And that's where NVIDIA's expertise in AI supercomputing comes in. They're developing these specialized supercomputers, like this thing called Project Digits, which is specifically designed for AI workloads. And they're making this power accessible through the cloud so anyone can tap into it.
So this is like the engine driving this whole robot revolution. It's processing all that data, running the simulations, making these advancements even possible.
Right.
It's mind-blowing to think about. But let's step back to those agentic robots for a moment. Can you give me a clearer picture of what those might actually look like and how they might work alongside humans?
Absolutely. Let's imagine you're back in your office. Now picture this.
Okay, so you're saying I walk into my office and there's like a robot coworker just hanging out. What would that even look like in action?
Well, not quite hanging out, more like diligently working. These agentic robots wouldn't necessarily be like walking around like you and me. They might be integrated into workstations or even be more like smart devices that interact with the physical world.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So what would these robot coworkers actually be doing all day?
Think about all the tasks that kind of bog you down. Data entry, scheduling meetings, sorting through emails.
Right.
Agentic robots could handle all of that easily. And they could be using platforms like NVIDIA's NIMS, which allows companies to build custom AI agents for specific
That
tasks.
sounds amazing. No more endless email chains. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But I can't help but wonder what happens to all the people who currently do those jobs.
That's a valid concern, and it's something we need to address thoughtfully. But history shows us that technology tends to shift jobs rather than eliminate them entirely. Remember when everyone thought ATMs would replace bank tellers?
Right, but tellers took on more complex roles, like advising customers.
Exactly, and I think we'll see a similar trend with agentic robots as they take over those more routine tasks. Human workers can then focus on that higher level work that requires, creativity and problem solving. It's about humans and AI working together, not robots replacing us altogether.
I like that, a collaborative future. So these agentic robots could actually free us up to do more like interesting and fulfilling work. That's a pretty optimistic outlook.
I think it's realistic. And remember, these robots are constantly learning. The more data they process, the better they become at understanding our needs and anticipating what we need to be productive.
So it's not just about robots doing what we tell them. It's about them learning and adapting to become even more helpful over time. That's impressive. Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about those humanoid robots, the ones actually walking around. What are the real-world applications for robots like that?
We might see humanoid robots working in hazardous environments like disaster zones or even space exploration. They could also assist with tasks that are physically demanding or dangerous for humans.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I still keep coming back to that challenge you mentioned earlier. How do you teach a robot to move like a human? It just seems like such a huge hurdle.
It is. But NVIDIA is making progress with that synthetic data generation in Omniverse.
Right.
They can simulate all sorts of human movements,
Right.
but it's in a virtual world, and then they use that data to train the robots. It's like giving them years of practice in a matter of hours.
So they're basically building virtual stunt doubles to teach robots how to move gracefully. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But let's be real. It's going to be a while before we see these humanoid robots strolling down the street, right?
It's probably not going to happen overnight. But the groundwork being laid today is remarkable. I mean, think about how far we've come in just a few years with AI. Who knows what the next decade will bring for robotics?
It's exciting and maybe a little bit intimidating all at the same time. This whole ChatGPT moment for robots, it feels like we're on the cusp of something truly transformative. But before we get too carried away dreaming about robot butlers, let's talk about the bigger picture. What does this all mean for society?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there are no easy answers. But I think it's crucial to have those open and honest conversations about the potential impact of these technologies. We need to consider the ethical implications, the potential for job displacement, and how we ensure that these advancements benefit everyone.
Right, it's not just about the cool factor. It's about using this technology responsibly and thoughtfully. Focusing on the potential challenges, though, are there specific concerns that kind of keep you up at night?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the potential for bias. If these robots are trained on data that reflects existing societal biases, they could perpetuate and even amplify those biases in their actions and decision-making.
That's a scary thought. It's like the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. If the data is biased, the robots will be biased too.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to think critically about the data we're using to train these AI systems and to ensure that it's diverse, representative, and free from harmful biases.
It feels like that's a responsibility that falls on all of us, not just the tech companies developing these robots.
Absolutely. We need to be having these conversations at all levels, from government policy to individual choices about how we interact with these technologies. It's a collective effort to ensure that this robotic revolution benefits humanity as a whole.
So this isn't just about robots taking over the world. It's about us shaping how that world looks.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing conversation, one that we need to keep having as these technologies continue to evolve. But let's bring it back to our listener for a moment. This might seem like a far-off future, but how might these advancements impact their lives in the coming years?
Good point. This isn't just science fiction anymore. It's starting to feel very real.
It is. And the impact could be felt in ways we haven't even imagined yet. But let's start with something more concrete. Think about your daily commute. Imagine, hopping into a self-driving car and it just seamlessly navigates traffic while you're, catching up on work or just relaxing.
Okay, yeah, that's something I can definitely get on board with. No more road rage or rush hour stress. Sounds pretty idyllic.
Yeah.
But what about those agentic robots we were talking about earlier? How might those impact our daily lives outside of the workplace?
Well, think about all those tasks around the house that you might not enjoy. Maybe it's folding laundry, doing the dishes, or even meal prep. What if you had a robot that could handle all those chores for you,
Hmm.
freeing up your time for things you actually enjoy?
Now you're talking. A robot chef and housekeeper, that's a future I can definitely get behind. But wouldn't that make us all a bit lazy?
It's not about laziness, it's about reclaiming your time and energy. Imagine having more time to spend with loved ones, pursue hobbies, or simply relax. It's about shifting our focus from those mundane tasks to things that, bring us joy and fulfillment.
Okay, you've sold me on the robot chef idea. But thinking beyond our own personal lives, what about the broader societal implications? We've touched on job displacement, but are there other potential challenges we need to be thinking about?
One thing that comes to mind is the potential for increased inequality. If these advanced robots and AI systems are only accessible to the wealthy, it could create a wider gap between the haves and have-nots.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. It's not enough to simply develop these technologies. We need to ensure that they're accessible to everyone, regardless of their, socioeconomic status.
Exactly. And that requires thoughtful policymaking, investment in education and training, and a commitment to creating a more equitable society.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener. We've gone from this exciting vision of robots everywhere to, a much deeper consideration of the potential challenges and responsibilities that come with this technology.
And that's exactly what I was hoping for. It's important to approach this ChatGPT moment for robots with both enthusiasm but also a critical eye. We need to be asking those tough questions, considering the ethical implications, and working together to shape a future where these advancements truly benefit humanity.
So what can our listeners do to be a part of this conversation, to help shape this future? It feels like it's going to impact all of us, so we should all have a voice, right?
Absolutely. The first step is simply to stay informed. Pay attention to the advancements being made, read about the ethical debates, and engage in those conversations with your friends, family, colleagues.
That's a great point. The more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to, make thoughtful decisions and advocate for the kind of future we want to see. What else can we do beyond staying informed? It feels like this isn't something we can just sit back and watch unfold.
You're right. We can support organizations that are working to develop these technologies responsibly, advocate for policies that promote ethical AI development. We can even consider careers in fields related to robotics and AI.
So whether it's through education, advocacy, or even our career choices, we all have a role to play in shaping this robotic future.
Exactly. This is a turning point, and the choices that we make today will have a ripple effect for generations to come.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive has definitely left me with a lot to think about. It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to realize that we're living through such a transformative moment in history.
I agree. But I'm optimistic that if we approach this with a sense of responsibility and a willingness to learn and adapt, we can harness the power of these technologies to create a more just, equitable, and ultimately more fulfilling world.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. The robot revolution is here. It's happening right now. And it's up to all of us to decide what that future looks like.
Remember, the future is not predetermined. It's a future that we're writing together.